History often remembers the great victories, but sometimes it's the failures that echo the loudest. Battles lost not just on the field, but through arrogance, miscommunication, and disastrous planning. Today we're diving into the top 5 failed military adventures in history. Epic disasters that not only cost thousands of lives, but also changed the course of nations forever. In this list, number 1 is Napoleon's invasion of Russia. In 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte, the most feared general of his age, launched his boldest campaign yet, the invasion of Russia. With over 600,000 troops, it was one of the largest armies the world had ever seen. But Russia was ready. They retreated deeper into their vast land, burning villages, crops, and supplies so the French army could find nothing to eat. When Napoleon reached Moscow, the city itself was set ablaze. With no shelter, no food, and winter closing in, disaster struck. Temperatures plunged, soldiers froze in their sleep, horses collapsed in the snow, and disease swept through the ranks. By the time Napoleon retreated, only around 30,000 men made it back. What was meant to be his greatest triumph became his ultimate downfall, a failure so devastating it shattered his empire. Number 2 is the Charge of the Light Brigade, Crimean War. Fast forward to 1854 during the Crimean War. The British cavalry, known as the Light Brigade, was ordered to charge, but due to a catastrophic miscommunication, they rode not toward a weak flank, but directly into the mouth of Russian artillery. Hundreds of horsemen galloped into what Alfred Lord Tennyson would later call the Valley of Death. Cannon fire ripped through their lines as soldiers were cut down in a matter of minutes. Out of over 600 riders, nearly half were killed or wounded. Though remembered as an act of unmatched bravery, militarily it was senseless, a tragic waste of life caused by poor leadership and confusion. Number 3 is Operation Barbarossa. In 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history. 3 million German soldiers stormed across the Soviet border, expecting to crush the Red Army within weeks. At first, the Blitzkrieg seemed unstoppable, but the Soviet Union was no ordinary foe. The vast distances, poor roads, and endless resistance stretched German supply lines thin. And then came the Russian winter. Temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees. German tanks froze, weapons jammed, and soldiers lacked proper winter gear. The Red Army regrouped and struck back with ferocity. What Hitler thought would be a quick victory turned into a nightmare that cost millions of lives and marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. Number 4 is the Gallipoli Campaign. During World War I, the Allied powers sought to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war by capturing the Dardanelles Strait. Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, championed the bold plan, but the Gallipoli Campaign quickly turned into a disaster. Poor planning, underestimation of Ottoman strength, and treacherous terrain led to one of the bloodiest stalemates of the war. Allied soldiers faced scorching heat, disease, and relentless gunfire from well-entrenched defenders. After 8 months of brutal fighting, more than 250,000 casualties were suffered on each side, and the Allies withdrew in defeat. It became one of Britain's most humiliating failures, and for Churchill, a stain on his early political career. Number 5 is the Bay of Pigs invasion. Finally, one of the most infamous failures of the Cold War, the Bay of Pigs invasion. In 1961, the United States secretly trained and armed a force of Cuban exiles to overthrow Fidel Castro's communist government. The plan was bold, but fatally flawed. Poor planning, lack of air support, and underestimation of Cuban defenses turned the invasion into a complete fiasco. Within 3 days, Castro's forces captured or killed nearly all the invaders. Not only was the operation a military disaster, it was also a political embarrassment for the U.S. and President John F. Kennedy. Instead of weakening Castro, it strengthened him, pushing Cuba even closer to the Soviet Union and setting the stage for the Cuban Missile Crisis a year later. These 5 failed military adventures remind us that even the strongest armies and the boldest leaders are not immune to disaster. Overconfidence, poor planning, and underestimating the enemy have toppled empires, ended political careers, and changed the history forever. So, which of these failures do you think was the most catastrophic? Was it Napoleon's frozen retreat from Russia, or the doomed Bay of Pigs invasion? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from the pages of history.